Well, I just got home from work today and probably got about an hour before it gets dark. If I work fast, I might be able to actually get this thing done enough so I can actually see it run today, which would be nice. One of the things I got to do, never get around to doing, I want to take care of before I forget about it, is I never did tighten this nut on the back of the alternator, which would help if I had done that. Also would help if I had the right size wrench. Well, I just whipped out the ohm meter, did a continuity check. You remember this old key switch? This is the one that wasn't working at all, and then I sprayed some contact cleaner in through that hole right there, and it started to work somewhat, but it's still not right. I get a good contact when I put it into the cranking position, turn the key to the cranking position. I get good contact between the battery terminal and this ST terminal, which is what I need for cranking. But the ignition position, I still get high resistance between the IGN or ignition terminal and the battery terminal when I put it in the ignition on position. I just tried putting some more cleaner in there and it's still not working correctly. But I do get good continuity between battery and ACC or accessory. So the way this key switch is supposed to work is, this one position is for the key to come out. That's the fully off position. Then if you turn it back one, that's ACC on. If you turn it forward one, that's ACC on. And then when you turn it one more click forward, then the ACC stays on and the IGN or ignition terminal is supposed to come live, but it doesn't. And then, of course, if you keep going that way, you get the spring loaded position, which is going to send the 12 volts to the ST to crank the starter. So I am still going to use this key switch because I don't really care about the fact that it's ACC and IGN. As long as I've got one of the two that's going to stay live when the key is in the on position to feed that 12 volts through my idiot light circuit to my alternator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up wiring this up and treating the ACC terminal as if it was an IGN terminal. I asked the original owner about where the key switch was mounted because I remarked about this hole, and he said actually that's where the key switch was mounted when he got it. And I said, well, that hole's too big. And he said, he said there was actually a washer that they were using to make it work. And he said there might be actually in this toolbox here. So there was a bunch of garbage in here. I just started digging through it. I kind of looked through there before and found several key switches. Now a little more forensic analysis of what was in that box indicates that looks like here's the remnants of a light switch. This looks like it might have been maybe the original light switch or one like it. Here's a shaft for another one. Here's another switch of some type. This looks like it might be a momentary contact push button switch, what's left of it. This switch with the strange shaped keys, I think this is the original Oliver key switch. Actually says Cole on it, but if I recall, I think I saw online some original Oliver key switches, and I think they had that weird shape like that to them. Here's another key switch. Here's another one. This one right here, what's nice about this one is it's got the tabs. You can peel back and actually open this up and clean the contacts if you wanted to. Go through the trouble. Got some definite screws here for these key switches, and then I did find this washer right here. Looks promising. So let's see if that fits. Yes, I bet you this is the washer he was talking about. See if we can't figure out if this is going to work. Yeah, that sort of works, but then I found this washer in there also. This one's a tighter fit on the top, and it doesn't go over that lower part. So I think what they may have been doing is maybe this big washer goes underneath the dash, and then this one goes on top. Yeah, see, that one fits down around that collar, and then that one will go on top. Alright, so I guess this will work. So let's see, this is off, back for accessory only, and then back to off. This position would be accessory and ignition on if the switch was working correctly, and then this would be, of course, to crank. Alright, I think I can live with that. That means I'm not going to end up using this hole for my idiot light. I was going to just enlarge that hole for my idiot light, but I guess I'll have to mount my idiot light elsewhere. Maybe I'll mount it right smack in the middle here. Well, it's a day later since I was last working on this, and once again, it's late enough in the afternoon that by the time I finished work, I'm not going to have much daylight left, but let's see if we can get a little bit more done today. So the first thing I want to do today is I want to get 12 volts supplied over to the battery terminal on the ignition switch. So that 12 volt, where I want that to come from is I want that to come from one of the connections on the ammeter, and I want it to come from the connection on the ammeter that goes towards the alternator. So if the alternator didn't exist, it would actually basically be like a piece of wire in there, if you can imagine that. So then it wouldn't matter where in the circuit. But on all of the diagrams that I've seen online where there was an ammeter present, I noticed that they were pulling the 12 volt source for the ignition switch off of the side of the ammeter closest to the alternator, as opposed to the other side, which is closer to the battery. So that's where I'm going to install it. So I need a short jumper wire to go from this terminal right here over to the bat terminal on the ignition key. Alright, now I've got that wire hooked up. Pretty heavy gauge wire. I think that's a 12 gauge wire I've got hooked up to bring the, or is that a 10? I don't remember. Anyways, to feed the 12 volt over to the battery terminal in the ignition switch. Now I'm going to hook up this wire here to the center terminal here, which is the, goes over to the starter solenoid. And that goes on this center terminal right here marked ST. Here's what I settled on for an idiot light. This is a 12 volt light. It's a sealed unit, and you only need a standard 1/2 inch hole, and this will press into the hole and it'll be snug. And this is a sealed unit so that it can get wet from the top here and not have to worry about it being damaged from that. So at least that's what they tell me. So this is what I'm going to use. This is going to be wired in, so I'm going to put a ring terminal on one side of this, and misplaced my 1/2 inch drill bit, and rather than spend the rest of the daylight wasting looking for that, I think I'm going to just wire this up temporary so we can see if it works. So this terminal here I'm going to have go to the it's supposed to go to the ignition terminal on the key switch, but because I've got a bad key switch, I'm going to use that accessory terminal instead. And then this wire here needs to go to the white wire on the alternator. Because the other side of this idiot light goes directly to the white wire that goes to the alternator and nowhere else, I don't need to put ring terminals on that. I could just use a butt connector and connect it directly like this, but what I want to do is put a disconnect in there, one of those little spade disconnect connectors in there, so that when I eventually do drill my hole here in the dash for the light, I'll be able to I won't have to cut the wire. It won't be a permanent connection, and then I can just drop the wire back through and reconnect it. Oh, I can't find any of those quick connectors. I'm out of them. And if I run to the store to get some, by the time I get back, it'll certainly be too dark. So I'm just throwing a wire nut on there temporarily because I really want to just test fire this thing and see if I've got a good alternator and a good working charging circuit. So the last connection I need to make before this will actually work is this red wire, which is the voltage sensing wire, which normally I need that to go to would be like a bus bar location where, you know, like a main distribution block or area where all of the accessories are going to be fed off of. In this case, I'm going to have this eventually go to one of the screw terminals on the new light switch. and everything's going to be fed off of that light switch terminal. So for the time being, though, I'm just going to temporarily make sure that this is going to any 12 volt location underneath the dash here. And to make that temporary hookup, I'm going to use this scrap of wire I've got left over from another project. It's already got a terminal connector on it there, so I can hook this up on the ignition switch on a ACC terminal and use a wire nut right there, and that way I'll have the 12 volt sensing wire hooked up. Oh, just found out that terminal hole is too small. I'll find another one. Alright, so believe it or not, that's the basic setup that I need to make the alternator work. So I'm going to test it, and if it tests okay, then I'll hardwire it in properly, drill a hole for my idiot light, and then I'll run the wires over to the light switch and then start working on the auxiliary systems wiring, which is basically just the horn and the lighting. So first test is going to be if we insert the key, if we turn it on, we shouldn't get any smoke or tripping breakers or anything, but we should get a light. Okay, not getting a light from the idiot light. That's not good. Let's check the let's see, I'm going to pull the shut off because I don't want to. Just check the crank. Yeah, we got power come to the key switch. And right now there should be power go into that idiot light and lighting it. So we've either got a problem where 12 volts isn't coming from my key switch, which I kind of doubt, or we get a problem in the alternator circuit, which is more likely, which is not good.